Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we decode or turn into very easily understand information. All of those sometimes difficult to understand corporate filings. Today get ready for some bond fund revelations because let's be honest, it's almost impossible to be more boring without being illegal. In this video, we're diving into the Columbia Bond Fund's annual shareholder report. Forget the standard boring finance talk, because we're about to unearth whether this bond fund is a hidden gem that's actually worth something, or just a cleverly disguised dud. That is all bark and no bite. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss out on Corporate Decoder, where we give you those very useful details about things. We also have the links below to our Discord community. Okay, so this report is like a yearly checkup for the Columbia Bond Fund that ended on April 30, 2025. Just like a doctor says how healthy you are, this report tells us how healthy the fund is. It gives key info and more importantly shows how the managers actually did their job that year. Were they good or were they bad? Are they actually moving the fund in a positive direction? First, let's talk costs. Everyone wants to know where their money is going, right? Quite A shares, it costs $78 for every $10,000 you invested, 0.74%. This number, it's important because this is what you as a retail investor would need to expect to pay if you have 10K and buy into any of the offered groups. That is what to expect, not accounting for external market factors which can have both positive and negative impact. Now, how did the fund actually perform? This is where things get interesting. Outlet can 44 trade force shares. Before sales charges, returned 9.56%. That's solid, as they say, not too shabby. But here's the catch. After sales charges, that return drops to 4.34%. So think about it that way. Almost half your return is already gone, but most funds also follow this type of situation. Don't expect to get rich fast, but it's a decent place to keep cash secure. Compare that to the Bloomberg US Aggregate Bond Index, which returned 8 now, let's see, over more longer term, which is what you should expect when making wise long-term investments. And looking at the 5-year and 10-year averages, things get a bit dicier. Compare that to the Bloomberg US Aggregate Bond Index, which returned 8 now, let's see, over more longer term, which is what you should expect when making wise long-term investments. And so looking at the 5-year and 10-year averages, things get a bit dicey. Class A shares excluding sales charges show a mere 0.34% and 1.72%, but with sales charges factored in, those numbers turn negative to 0.62% and 1.23%. The fund managed about $1,903,502 or 1 billions, and the management services fees amounted to $4,656 and what you are paying indirectly when giving them your money. What's in this fund anyway? The top holding are in mortgage-backed securities that are basically investment that are a bunch of mortgages. For example, the first security mentions mortgage bonds, so the fund earns when people pay mortgages and loses when they do not. That would mean that this fund is betting on the housing market to do well, or at least people will keep their mortgages so that they can get paid on time, and this fund can make a profit. How safe are it investments? The report shows the credit quality or rating of what the fund invests in, which could range from high quality all the way to what is known as not rated, which means it's a much more risky investment type. Okay, what was the Columbia Bond Fund? Now let's move on to something more. Now let's keep it on the level and talk about some legal safeguards in place. The company here has code of ethics. These are rules that the executives and financial people, also known as the people that handle big piles of cash, must have. These code of ethics include ethical things like what to do if you have a conflict of interest or the requirements to stay inside rules about legal and honest behavior. This document explains the high requirements for the guys that are in charge, or they can get in trouble. Dicken's the high requirements for the guys that are in charge, or they can get in trouble. Next up, the Audit Committee financial experts. These are like financial detectives. These people, J. Kevin Connaughton, Brian J. Gallagher, Douglas A. Hacker, David M. Moffat, and Sandra L. Yager are experts the company have on staff to make sure that our numbers are in order. The key thing is that they are independent from another sections on the company. This guarantees that they are independent from another sections on the company. This guarantees that they are independent from another sections on the company. This guarantees that they are independent from another sections on the company. This guarantees that their numbers are in order. The key thing is that they are independent from another sections on the company. This guarantees that their numbers are in order. The key thing is that they are independent from another sections on the company. This guarantees that they are not pressured by anyone. Alright, so who checks the financial detectives? That would be the principal accountant, similar to what doctors have with other peer reviews. Up the audit fees were about $42,411 and tax fees were another 13,000 to 1795. These are all for making sure everything's above board. We also learned another number under a weird category called non-audit fees. The company had to pay $470.95. These are all for making sure everything's above board. We also learned another number under a weird category called non-audit fees. The company had to pay $470.95. These are all for making sure everything's above board. We also learn another number. Under a weird category called non-mortit fees, the company had to pay $407. The company had to pay $474,000 to their advisors. They also need the approval from the audit committee to continue working with their advisors. They explain QF, the registrant's audit committee, is required to pre-approve the engagement of the registrant's independent auditors to provide audit and non-audit services. This section gives a look at where all the money is invested, and it's contained in item 7 of this filing. Okay, that's a wrap on this corporate deep dive. So after looking at the reports, what do I think about this? It's a mixed bag. The fund had a great year, but long-term performance is shaky, especially after those sneaky sales charges. The fund's strong bet on that housing market could pay off, but it's a gamble. Their strategies are interesting, but I would tell anyone to keep a close eye just in case. Alright, that's our breakdown on the Columbia Bond Fund. This is, as always, not financial advice, but an attempt to make confusing documents more easy to understand. And what's your take on these filings and what they could signal for the company's future? And more importantly, your funds. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Also, be sure to join our Discord server using the link below. And for more deep dives, don't miss by hitting that bell, subscribing and smash that like button, and I'll see you next time.